Hey guys, going to be broadcasting the solutions to the free response with a multiple choice matching and free response for Unit 2 practice test in electrochemistry. Here we go. The first matching, we always start off with matching on the AP chemistry test. I see these words anode, cathode, and salt bridge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write down my mnemonic, anox, red cat. I'm also going to draw a simple battery labeling the sides of the battery and the electron flow. Now that I've done that, I'm going to answer the questions. Maintains electron flow. That's the salt bridge. Side of reduction in the battery. Reduction happens at the cathode. You also see the cathode is catching the electrons. So that's going to be B. The negative side of the battery, we already identified that as the anode. That is A. Okay. These choices refer to N, which is the number of moles of electrons. N shows up in our delta G equation. N also shows up when doing plating problems. Simple way to do this, N is the total number of electrons transferred. That's also going to be equal to the charge on both sides. So on this side, 2 times 3 equals 6. 3 times 2 equals 6. On this side, 2 times 1 equals 2, and 1 times 2 equals 2. On this side, 1 times 1 equals 1, and 1 times 1 equals 1. So 6, 2, and 1. So the answer to number 4 is D, the answer to number 5 is B, and the answer to number 6 is A. Number 7, in which of the following does nitrogen have the lowest oxidation number? So we got to go through and find the oxidation number for each. In the first one, we're going to have x plus 2 times minus 2 equals 0. So x equals 4. In this one, we're going to have 1 times plus 1 plus x plus 3 times minus 2. Okay, so that means in this case, x is plus 5. And I believe so. 5, 6, 2, yeah. In C, we have x plus 4 times plus 1 equals plus 1, x equals minus 3. So far, C is your winner. When you go through and you do that for all of them, you'll see that C is actually the answer to that problem. Okay, in this one, this is a really good example of how they're really not asking you to do the math. They're asking you just to set up a problem. So if you don't look at any of the choices, what we have here is we have a plating problem where we're actually taking gold, which is 3 electrons, and we're reducing it down to gold 0. And they're asking how much mass would you produce if you did that for 10 minutes. So we're starting with 10 minutes, and we got to convert that to 60 seconds. And in 1 second, there are 2 coulombs, because that is the current. And we know that there's 96,500 coulombs per every 1 mole of electrons. And we know that there are 3 moles of electrons required every time you reduced 1 mole of Au, and every 1 mole of Au is 197 grams. So we need 10, 60, 2, and 197 on the top, and we need 96,503 on the bottom, and that's going to give us answer C. And which of the following occurs in the reaction above? So what we really have to do in these problems is uncover the oxidation states before we begin. After you do that, that would be plus 3, that's minus 1, that's 0, and that's minus 1. So question A says Au is oxidized at the anode. Oxidation does happen at the anode because of anox red cat, but Au is reduced from plus 3 to 0, so that can't be the case. AuCl4 minus is reduced at the cathode. This is going to be the answer. This is reduced because it gains electrons, and reduction does happen at the cathode. Let's go through and make sure we understand everything else. Gold is converted from -3 to 0. We know that is not correct because gold goes from +3 to 0. Cl- is oxidized at the anode. We know that Cl does not change, so it is not oxidized. Cl acts as a reducing agent. Reducing agents are oxidized. They must change. Also, D and E are repetitive statements. The thing that's oxidized is also the reducing agent. So you could not have both of those as choices. In the following, which one does hydrogen have an oxidation state of -1? That's going to be C. The main reason is Ca equals +2 in this case. Okay, so if you have 1 times +2 plus 2 times x equals 0, x equals -1. This is called hydride. It's the only time when H can be minus. In this problem here, based on the reduction potentials above, what is the reaction potential? This is the same thing as E cell for the following reaction. So we see that E cell equals negative E ox plus E reduced. Okay, so who is oxidized? Cu is oxidized, so negative positive 0.30 plus negative 0.40 equals negative 0.70 volts. So the answer is A. In the key, I actually choose B because I am stupid, but the actual answer is A. In 12, the answer is E, and that is none of the above. The reason the answer is none of the above is because they're asking you which one of them occurs spontaneously. That means E has got to be greater than 0. Subsequently, delta G would be less than 0. But in this problem, we only have to look for this. Well, if you go through A, B, C, and D, they are all going to have negative E's. In A, if you flip Cu, because that is who is oxidized, you get negative 0.30 plus a negative 1.2, which equals negative 1.5 volts. If you go through and do this process for each one, they are all going to be negative all the way through. So don't, it's really not that bad. You just look at each problem. For instance, in B, Zn is oxidized. So if you flip that to 0.80 and you add that to Mn, negative 1.2, you're going to get negative 0.4 volts. So that cancels out that one as well. All the way through, the same thing will happen. You'll get actually the same choice. So none of the above are true because they all have E's that are less than 0. Thus, all the delta G's will be greater than 0. In this problem above, they're basically just asking you to calculate E. So, and then to understand the spontaneity of the situation. So negative E ox plus E reduced is going to be negative Al, who's oxidized. So I'm going to flip this, and I'm going to get a negative 1.66 plus negative 0.74. So I'm at 1.66 minus 0.74. Okay, so I'm going to get a positive 0.92 volts in this situation. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this. So the answer is going to be B, 0.92 volts, and the reaction is spontaneous. So you had to know two things. You had to know how to calculate the voltage. We flipped the one who was oxidized, and we had to be able to understand that if it's a positive voltage, the reaction is spontaneous. Okay, in 14 here, they asked which is not true, and that's going to be C. Hydrogen is +1 here. Hydrogen is also +1 here. All the others are true. If you do it out, that's +6, that's -2, that's -1, +3, 0, +1, -2. It takes place in acidic solution because of that's H+. We're good. All of the following true regarding cells except the anode. The anode is the negative side. All right, I'll see you guys on the free response questions. Take care.